you probably ought to make a dry run through it.
Where is Jermaine?
That one was designed for the...
Okay, I now call this meeting to order. Would you please rise and join me in the flag salute?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, for the record, all staff is here with the exception of John Coleman, who is at a professional conference. Councilman Cornegay will be a few minutes late, and Councilman Judith Dunlea is traveling. So I'll entertain a motion at this time to excuse Councilman Judith Dunlea's absence.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to excuse Councilmember Judith Dunlea today.
Okay, the motion was made by Councilman Kinzer and seconded by Councilman Owen to excuse Judith Dunlea's absence. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And she's excused. Okay, the consent calendar, we've got a couple of things that have to be addressed. First of which is under item C, claim checks. For the council's information, check number 184536 will be voided from that. Should have no consequence. Item E, I would like to pull for further discussion. So that being said, council knows the drill. Items A through D with the exception of a voided check.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve consent calendar items A through E.
A through D.
A through D, my apologies, with the voidance of check number 184536.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion was made by Councilman Lemley, seconded by Councilman Johnson to approve the consent calendar items A through D with the exception of the voided check 184536. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor, with that, I'm going to abstain from check number 184530 to JJ's Cruisers because that's my car.
Okay, noted. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And it carries. So, Aaron, do you want to go over item E for the board now, please?
Item E is a continuation of our partnership between the county, the port, and the city for the redevelopment of the Swift Center. Item E includes two components that are new to the partnership. This is the third revised interlocal, and those are dollars for continued efforts on the relocation of behavioral health from the Swift Center campus, and dollars to pay for the permitting related to the fishing derby pond. So as you can see on the behavioral health component, the county's taking the lead. So they're at the $54,000 contribution level with the city and the port each at $6,000. And on the pond, it's just an equal share to try to float that burden for the community, so about $300 each. The reason that I asked the mayor to pull this from the consent calendar is the county's attorney has a few changes that she's going to be proposing to the language that are not related to the dollar commitments or anything of that nature, but more related to the legal language of the document. And if you're comfortable, I would appreciate having a motion to approve it subject to final review by the mayor and the city attorney. If you're not, we can bring it back to you when she's done. So either of those scenarios would be appropriate tonight.
Council have any questions? So that's item E. We can either approve it with pending final revisions, or Aaron can bring it back.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we do approve it with pending changes and for the interlock agreement and the authorization.
I have a question. Is there a time crunch on this?
Yeah, but if you're really concerned about the county's components, we can just tell them it won't happen until the 28th. We were hoping to get it done this week so we could get through the county's process. The port was hoping to have this contract effective September 1st, so they're looking for a ratification on their end. But it's really up to you. I mean, it can only go as far as it can go. I did my part, got it staffed to you, and I found out yesterday that the county had some concerns once the legal department got a look at it that they want to address.
Second? Did you have any more questions, Brenda?
Just really late.
Motion was made by Councilman Johnson to approve the interlocal item E between the city and the port pending final revisions and approval by the city attorney, and was seconded by, was it you, Brett? Brett. Seconded by Brett. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Okay. Motion carries. Brenda is in opposition. And next we have a couple changes to the agenda. We have two presentations. So first I would start with Callista Scott from the Diaper Need Awareness. Yeah, you have time. It's a presentation, so just let everybody know who you are and why you're here. And then we have hopefully a proclamation once we get a vote. So.
And if someone has the photos, maybe they can bring them up to the city council members. Somebody has ended up with them. Thank you.
Thanks. Please speak into the microphone so you can be recorded.
Like this? Is this good?
As close as you can get, it really helps.
So, that's right?
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay. I'm Callista Scott, and my organization or project is called Diaper Need Awareness. And thank you for having me, Mayor Wagner, and good evening. I was working as a volunteer at the La Conner Sunrise Food Bank when I noticed mothers were shopping for diapers. As a retired maternity nurse, I was surprised and then concerned. About a year later, I heard on the radio, actually national news, that a mother had started a diaper bank in Durham, North Carolina. Her name was Michelle Old, and I have since met her at a National Diaper Banks conference in Seattle. That was last fall. What I had observed at the food bank in La Conner, I came to find out, is called diaper need. It is not a common term, neither is the term diaper bank. I have to remember this because if I speak casually about diaper need and diaper banks, people often don't know what I'm talking about. A popular definition of diaper need, and one that I like to use, is that it is a gap. The difference between the number of diapers infants need to stay clean and comfortable, less the number of diapers a family can afford without cutting back on other basic essentials. Diaper need is a consequence of poverty, and it is a crisis in our nation. Diaper need is not well known or understood. Unless people have small children, they rarely think of diapers. In learning about diaper need, many people respond to me and to others who speak to them about diaper need by saying, I never thought about that. A social worker named Joanne Goldblum took the nation's diaper need to heart in the year 2004 and started a diaper bank in New Haven, Connecticut. By 2010, there were 8 diaper banks, and at this time, also, a groundbreaking study revealed that 1 in 3 families in Canada and in the United States struggle to provide diapers for their babies. Responding to this news, the March of Dimes announced its partnership with Huggies brand diapers, a product of Kimberly-Clark, in an effort to address the issues of diaper need. The next year, actually the same year I noticed mothers looking for diapers at the food bank in La Conner, Miss Goldblum and 3 other diaper bank founders, one of them from Seattle, with the support of Huggies, founded the National Diaper Bank Network, a nationwide nonprofit to safeguard one of the most basic needs of all babies, access to clean, dry diapers. The network raises the awareness of diaper need and supports the development and expansion of diaper banks in communities throughout our country. Since its founding, the National Diaper Bank Network, in conjunction with its founding sponsor, Huggies, has distributed, over the past 5 years, more than 160 million diapers to families in need. Now, I wish there were time to talk to you longer. We haven't really gotten to take a look at the impact of diaper need on our children, on our mothers, families, and communities. I can only say, from where I have stand, that it is huge. I'm so glad to be here tonight and talk to you, and if there are individuals here who would like to speak with me individually or as groups, I'd be glad to see you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Council, you have a proclamation before you. It was late material.
Make a motion to allow you to proclaim
If you so choose, yes, sir.
Diaper Need Awareness Week for the city of Sedro-Woolley.
That would be nice.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, the motion was made by Councilman Lemley, seconded by Councilman Cornegay, to proclaim the city of Sedro-Woolley declaring the week 26 September through 2 October 2016 as Diaper Awareness Week. And any further discussion?
I think it's great that you're bringing this to our attention. In some cases, diapers can be a higher expense than food for babies. So thank you for bringing that to us and bringing awareness to it.
It's certainly a hole in the WIC program that your organization can help patch anyway, if not fix entirely. Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So it carries unanimously, and then I'll read your proclamation. I, Keith Wagner, Mayor of City of Sedro-Woolley, do hereby proclaim the week of September 26th through October 2nd, 2016 as Diaper Awareness Week in the city of Sedro-Woolley, and it encouraged the citizens of Sedro-Woolley to donate generously to diaper drives and those organizations that distribute diapers to family in need to help alleviate diaper need in Sedro-Woolley and environs. So you may take this copy back with you. Thank you for coming.
How many papers have you gone through over the years?
We use disposable.
And did we get their pictures back? Yeah, Cheryl, if you can just set those up in case somebody else wants to look at them. Thank you very much. Next presentation will be by Ellen from our Senior Center.
Thank you. Just give it to us and we'll just pass it down. Give us the stack. Tried to help you. You got too many of them there, huh?
Be sure to state your name for the record, please, and speak into the microphone.
Okay. Hi, I'm Ellen Schreier. Getting used to the new name. I was Ellen Palmer for many years. I've worked for the county as the Senior Center Director for 19 years now, so it's now Ellen Schreier. So thank you, Mayor Wagner, members of the City Council, Chief Tucker, Chief Klinger, Aaron, Mark, Patsy, and Cheryl for having me this evening. I wanted to take this opportunity to thank you for all of your support to the Senior Center. It certainly is a wonderful place to work at and a wonderful wonderful place to receive the residents of the elder population in Sedro-Woolley. So this month is National Senior Center Month, and it started nationally in 1979, and we used to celebrate it in the second week of May. And I started that in the Senior Center, and we'd have a special week of celebratory events. And then in 2007, they moved it to encompass the whole month of September. So we started a barbecue that was in conjunction with all the other senior centers, and we had it down at Riverfront Park, and the Concrete Lions would come and grill burgers, and then we'd have everybody, all the seniors from Burlington, Mount Vernon, Concrete, come down. I think there's been a few of you that have been there. So this year we've changed it up a little bit. We're doing a pie social over in Mount Vernon Senior Center on September 21st as our official celebration. So yesterday, the Board of County Commissioners read a proclamation, and I wanted to take the opportunity to read this for you. And it is a proclamation, September as National Senior Center Month. Whereas older Americans are significant members of our society, investing their wisdom and experience to help enrich and better the lives of younger generations, and whereas the Skagit County Senior Centers have acted as a catalyst for mobilizing the creativity, energy, vitality, and commitment of the older residents of Skagit County, and whereas through the wide array of services, programs, and activities, senior centers empower the older citizens of Anacortes, Burlington, Concrete, Mount Vernon, and Sedro-Woolley to contribute to their own health and well-being and the health and well-being of their fellow citizens of all ages. And whereas the senior centers in Skagit County affirm the dignity, self-worth, and independence of older persons by facilitating their decisions and actions, tapping their experiences, skills, and knowledge, and enabling their continued contributions to the community. Now, therefore, the Skagit County Board of Commissioners do hereby proclaim September 2016 as National Senior Center Month in Skagit County, and call upon all citizens to recognize the special contributions of the Senior Center participants and the special efforts of the staff and volunteers who work every day to enhance the well-being of the older citizens of our community. So signed by our commissioners. And then the handout that I gave you is just the PowerPoint presentation that went along with that. And there are several pictures in there that are from our center. Councilman Owen frequents our center for lunch, and I think you like it there pretty much. Anyways, my purpose here tonight is to thank the council and the city of Sedro-Woolley for their ongoing support, to recognize the amount of energy and time that the volunteers bring to our services at the senior center. We couldn't do it without them. We have an exceptional team of Meals on Wheels drivers. We have more Meals on Wheels clients now than ever. About 60 hot meals go out every day to the clients. Plus, we have 35 to 40 people in-house for lunch every day. So it's a very busy place, and we couldn't do it without the support of the community, and we thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
Questions? I have a comment. We're real proud of that facility, and you do a great job down there. We sure appreciate it. I'm sorry I had to cancel my lunch today. County commissioners a county commissioner had a meeting that came at last minute, so we'll do it later.
Okay, well, you're always welcome there. You know that. And I just also want to make a side note that Nathan Salsina, Kevin Kesty, and Ray Fox are three of the most awesome guys, and they just do above and beyond for the senior center and for the participants and myself there. I wanted to say that. Thank you.
Ellen.
Thank you.
For everybody.
Okay, item 4, public comment. So, as always, remember you are addressing the council, not each other, and please don't engage in argument or cross-examination. You have 3 minutes at the podium. Be sure to state your name and your address and speak into the microphone so you can be properly recorded. So, who would like to be first, if anyone? Kevin. And welcome, it's been a while.
Kevin Loy, 128 Garden of Eden Road. I just wanted to give you a quick report. Saturday we had our 4th annual skateboard competition. And I did 3 counts of people, and my best guesstimate of the amount of people that were in attendance was probably around 300 during the day. We probably had 3 different waves, turnover of people that came. We had the most kids this year competing with about 60 of them, from far away as Ritzville and Auburn, Everett, Seattle, Oak Harbor, plus Mount Vernon, Burlington, Sedro-Woolley, Bellingham. So they're coming from all over just for this event. So it's working out really, really well. We had hot dogs and water all day long for free for everybody, parents, kids, everything. So it was quite a good event. It's getting a little bit better every year. The Skagit Speedway donated, Steve Beitler donated 9 fancy trophies. Different manufacturers provided prizes. Once again, the professional skateboard team showed up and were the judges. So it actually is a pretty positive thing around Western Washington for Sedro-Woolley, getting their name out for something positive. And we're penciled in for the 2nd Saturday of September for next year too. So it's working out. I have to fight the urge to make it bigger and better, because a lot of times I'll backfire on you, and this is for our kids. So it's pretty much working out the way we'd hoped it. And a lot of you may not know, we get $500 from the hotel motel tax to do this thing, and we couldn't do it without it. I mean, and then it's kind of a partnership or consortium. It's sort of the city of Sedro-Woolley, it's sort of me, it's sort of Hidden Board Wave Shop, it's sort of Adam McCoy. It's kind of a whole bunch of entities that actually make this thing happen. For an example, the last second, the city sprung for I used to live on them, scaffolding, so the announcer could see into the bowl and do his announcing. We also had some announcements a couple of times to promote the museum's open house. Hopefully it helped. I don't know if it did, but so it's a positive thing, and it's a year-to-year deal. So hopefully we'll get our grant or whatever you want to call it from the hotel motel tax, so we can do it again next year. So, but with 4 years, we've never had any problems. We have a big cleanup party at the end, so it looks halfway decent when we get done with it, and no troubles. We did have one problem after the fact this year. The PA announcer, after everything was loaded up and everybody was headed home, he decided he'd go out and skate and didn't put his helmet on and thumped his melon and ended up going and getting stitches and stuff. So Patsy mentioned the aid call, and I told her that was after the event. So, but he's in Costa Rica now, so he isn't hurting too bad. So anyway, the combination of the city and a whole bunch of people, hopefully we can keep this thing going for a while.
Anybody have any questions for Kevin? I went to it. It was fantastic. My hat is off to you, literally. It's back here somewhere behind me. It was excellently run. You got the good weather. You had all the right people there. We had the Concrete Herald, and I don't know if the other news showed up, but it was a blue ribbon event. So you said it was pretty positive. I say it was fantastic. Thanks.
The Concrete Herald stayed for 6 hours. He didn't do his job. He stayed at the event. So in the Skagit Valley Herald, I wish I'd have brought the picture. Sunday was the cutest picture of a 6-month-old baby on a skateboard. I mean, if anybody saved their Sunday morning paper, check page 4. It's got a little caption about Sedro-Woolley skate competition, but it's the cutest picture. So anyway, hopefully we'll do it again next year.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin.
Next up, yes, ma'am.
I'm Julie Anderson. My address is 900 West State Route 20 here in Sedro-Woolley. And I'm here to plead with the council and the city to do something about the signs that are all over the city. The campaign signs, I expect them. They're there every few years. I know, but and we have gotten used to seeing them, so we don't do anything about them, but it's getting worse and worse every year. And so this year, I've noticed that there's the red Woolly Party sign, and it's been out there, out around the city right-of-ways, in city-owned properties elsewhere. There's one in particular over by Skagit State Bank where that logging thing is in the road. Now there's some campaign signs out in the park out by Herb Chevron across the street. They're in the right-of-way. They're growing. And I thought at first that the Woolly Party one was a locals-only thing, because that's what it says, locals only. Join the party. Have any of you gone to their website? Anybody here gone to the website?
A little bit.
I have something for you. And they may be.
Is this their platform?
That's their platform. They have a platform, 8 pages. So, and I'm not saying that they are not a local thing. They could be, because they encourage shopping locally. And I thought that that's all that it was. And I didn't have a problem with it. But it's more than that. And when you open up the door for those kinds of things to be all over the city, it becomes blight if you don't do anything about it. It just grows. Give them an inch and they'll take a mile. And so my hope is that the city will at last address the issue of those kinds of signs being in the right-of-way, being in our city parks. Right now they're just small campaign signs, the regular size, 18 by 18 or maybe something like that. But what if there's a 4 by 8? Do we take it down, or can you take it down because you've left all the others up? So the potential for it to become bigger and uglier as time passes is there. And I'm just hoping that the city will do something about it, finally, and address the issue of signs being up for weeks and months on end. I get that there's yard sale signs. They're up for the weekend. I get that there's for sale signs for properties and open house signs that are up for the day. And maybe there's an exception for that. But the ones that last 4 months are a blight to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Next up. Christine?
So I'm Christine Johnson at 801 McLean. I'm a lifetime Sedro-Woolley area resident. I've lived within city limits since 1989. And for 23 years, I was also a business owner and employer in this city. Recently, a council member suggested I volunteer for a project, as I was fighting for the city library over and over. Actually, I was already volunteering as lead dentist for the suggested project, Project Homeless Connect. You may have seen one of our hygienists in the Skagit Valley Herald this last Saturday. Our 3 hygienists were awesome, and I was so happy to see it. But the article failed to tell you that 9 local dentists and several dental assistants also volunteered to serve our neighbors in need both Friday and Saturday. Dentistry was the only service available both days, thanks to our generous volunteers. It was a great example of our dental team and others working together in a true collaborative effort for a good result and a good cause. I also volunteer as a dentist in other capacities. For example, I enjoy working with the veterans on the dental van. I have many other volunteer activities. For example, I work hard as a seroptomist, so our group can afford to donate many items, including diapers, to the local WIC program. And my activities often add up to about 20 hours per week. But you're not going to see me in the paper because I'm not one of those, look at me, jump in front of the camera kind of people. Those aren't the kind of people I'm looking to emulate. The people I appreciate are ones like Bob Abrams, who attends these meetings and serves on our city library board, who every Wednesday works at the food bank all day. Those those people just quietly get the actual work done. And there's a lot of them that you don't know about. I'm sure all of you hold volunteer positions, and I thank you for that. But this job isn't one of them. You do get paid to be on the city council, and the mayor makes a lot more than you do. So all but one of you had opponents in recent elections, so there are other people who want your positions. My point is that many people care deeply about this town and the surrounding community. Many people do a great deal of work for this town and the surrounding community. Some more than you, maybe, without the compensation or recognition or the platform you've got to further your political agenda and careers. So please keep this in mind. We're not here as divisive agitators. We're here because we care. We're not doing this for fun or personal gain. We're here because we believe we must speak up so the right things do happen for our city and our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you, Christine.
Anybody else?
Good evening. My name is Beverly Kahn, and I currently reside at 5024B, 124th Street Northwest in Stanwood. I have been in the past a resident of Sedro-Woolley, but we currently live out of town due to some events in our life in the last couple of years. I wanted to let you know that I'm the reason that you continue to have these library discussions at your meeting, and it falls solely on my shoulders. 4 years ago, I, along with the City Library Board, pushed through a rural library system in the outer area of the Sedro-Woolley School District. At that time, the City Council asked the Library Board to start looking for alternative ways to fund the library. The board discussed a few options, and Deborah brought up a rural library system. She had sat on the board that had attempted to pass a countywide library system, as Skagit County is only one of 3 counties in this state that does not have, at the time, a rural library system. With a pure heart, I spearheaded this project. Here we sit 3 years later, complaint after complaint about annexing the city library into the rural library system. Does anybody see the big picture here? I started this project when I had a 17-year-old and a 12-year-old. Currently have a 20-year-old and a 15-year-old, and no closer to a library that is adequate to meet the needs for them. Do you know what it takes to have a healthy community? An adequate library is at the top of the list. Do you know that a community is less likely to fail if it has an adequate library system? That is a hard, cold fact. My husband and I have always said that our jobs as parents is to raise contributing community members. As parents, our job is to make sure that a community is there for them to return to live and to work. A well-funded, large, thriving library can be the reason many families decide to put down roots and live in this great community. Currently, our city library, in my opinion, as a mother and a constant library patron, does not meet the citizens of this city's basic needs of a 2016 library. The pure intent of voting in a rural library system 3 years ago was so that the city library would be annexed and there would be one library serving all of Sedro-Woolley. People from the City Library Board worked tirelessly for months, and the big selling point of asking people to vote yes was at the end there would be one large library to serve all of Sedro-Woolley and their visitors.
You have about 30 seconds.
For those that oppose this annexation, I encourage you to sit at what we hope to be the library coffee shop, complaining about how the new library could have been so much better if they'd done it this way. Thank you.
Thank you, Beverly. Anybody else? Okay, I'll close the public comment period at this time. And we'll move on to, there's no public hearing tonight, unfinished business, item 5, Skagit County EMS model update. And that, I believe, is you, Aaron?
Yes, and Councilmember Dunley and I are both the city's representatives to the Skagit County Delivery Models Advisory Group. Additionally, I'm on the subcommittee that's looking more specifically at a couple scenarios and making further analysis and recommendations to the full group. I thought it was appropriate for the City Council tonight to get a more detailed briefing because we're quickly moving towards the end of the process, and the field of options has been narrowed to about 3. The 3 options that we're currently considering are status quo, although I don't believe that that's an option that's likely to stay on the table because of all of the concerns that have been expressed, and I think the very fact that we have a committee looking at options is probably some evidence that there's dissatisfaction with the status quo. If I can go into that in more detail if you'd like. So the 2 new options then are a county department or an EMS district. So what we've done as a group is we've kind of bifurcated our lens. So we're looking at governance at one level, and then we've taken the delivery itself off the table for future consideration. There's some controversy in the group. There are some folks who want to just look at delivery, but I think the majority, and Commissioner Janicki was very open in her opinion that we really need to be looking at governance. I think the majority is interested in that. So structurally, the way EMS works in Skagit County is the county has a countywide levy, 37.5 cents per thousand to fund EMS. The county government receives that money, and from that they spend money on a medical program director. They spend money on training, quality assurance, and quality reviews. They do public education, such as public CPR, car seat trainings, those sorts of things. And they do the training, kind of the back-end training for medical, for the fire departments, for EMTs, and those sorts of things. So that's one piece. The other piece then is they actually run calls. So they fund the ALS and BLS calls in Skagit County, and primarily they've been ALS-centric. ALS is advanced life support. BLS is basic life support. Skagit County has 3 ALS providers: the City of Anacortes, Central Skagit, or the Central Valley Ambulance Authority, and Arrow Skagit. So the City of Anacortes is obviously, like us, a city. They run a fire-based system. So if Anacortes gets a call, let's say somebody fell off of their couch, can't get up, a ground level fall, in Anacortes they're going to get a med rig staffed with 2 paramedic firefighters, or possibly on some shifts a paramedic firefighter and an EMT firefighter. That's what will go to the call. If the same event happens in Sedro-Woolley, you'll get 3 rigs show up. You'll get Med 1, which is the Central Valley Ambulance Authority dual paramedic staffed rig, the blue one. You'll get, let's say it happened around here, you'll get the fire chief's rig 5519 will go with 2 firefighter EMTs on board, and then our department always sends an officer. So whether it's the chief tonight or one of the other volunteer officers who rotate, so you'll get 3 rigs and 5 people to that call. So that's one model. Arrow Skagit is a nonprofit entity. Nonprofit, aren't they? Yeah, nonprofit entity, and they staff kind of a mixed rig where they use paramedics who are off duty. They go up there and work, and they do a 1 paramedic, 1 EMT model. So just to give you a sense of how the valley is kind of covered. So the conversation is, how do you address that? Over the years, we've had an EMS commission. Well, let's back up. We had the hospitals running all of the ALS calls. They got out of the business. The county stepped in and ran a ambulance service for the Central Valley Core, which is about 85% of the call volume. There were some conflicts there with the county both paying for contracts for Anacortes and Arrow and running their own service. That resulted, I think, with some issues about financial oversight, some risk concerns, as well as some findings from the auditor's office resulted in the county spinning Central Valley Ambulance Authority off as a unit component of the government. So currently the CVAA, which does run 85% of the calls in this valley, is governed by a 7-member board. I am a member of that board representing the city of Sedro-Woolley. That board, however, doesn't have the full authority to operate. It's created by county ordinance, and the county commissioners have retained the ability to confirm appointees to the board, approve the annual budget, decide what financial accounting software the entity uses, and on and on and on. So there's a board in place, but the board is, it's kind of the tail on the dog. You know, it looks like the dog, but it's really the tail. It's just not quite fully capable of managing its business without the commissioner's direct engagement. So that's created significant conflict over the years. So a little bit of background. With these two models that are on the table for consideration, that's your status quo. The county department model would take the Central Valley Ambulance Authority and shift those employees into county government, and they would be managed by somebody under the EMS department. So county structure, 3 commissioners, county administrator, the director of EMS. That position is currently being filled by an interim, and then under that would be somebody who runs the central core operations. The other model is the EMS district, and the district would be a new entity, not unlike what we're doing with 911. The entity would be comprised of, well, it's yet to be determined. To create this entity requires Skagit County, the 4 cities, and the 4 towns to agree. That entity would have a countywide scope, would receive the countywide levy money till the end of the levy cycle, and then that entity itself would have constitutional taxing authority to ask the voters to continue with the countywide levy. So that board theoretically would be made up of, you know, maybe 9 members, 4 urban representatives, 4 rural representatives. Those 8 could select a chairperson to help run the meetings. They would then control the levy money, and would include a county rep and obviously a city of Sedro-Woolley representative. That group then would also be able to determine whether it continues the practice of contracting for service with Anacortes and Arrow, which I expect they would, and then they may in fact internalize the Central Valley Core Service. Some obvious advantages of the district are the fact that we would have a seat at the table as a city. So just stepping away from the whole group and looking countywide, looking at the Sedro-Woolley perspective, that would give our city a role in and a vote on the board that has the legal authority to spend levy money. Currently, I don't know what the percentage is, Dean. It's probably 90% of levy dollars are spent on ALS services, but there is a small portion that goes to BLS services. Sedro-Woolley Fire gets $35 a call for each report that they complete on med calls, aid calls, and we also get some levy dollars for equipment. So defibrillators, EMS disposables, those sorts of things. The county paid for 90% of 5519, as well as the striker gurney, the power gurney that's back there. That was just this year. So those are levy dollars that have flowed into Sedro-Woolley for BLS services. Sedro-Woolley is a little unique in that our department splits down and participates with the med units to expand the med capacity fairly regularly. So there's some bang for the buck there for the system and what they've done with Sedro-Woolley. So I think there's 2 meetings left, and ultimately this DMAG group's going to make a recommendation to the county, but the county can't move forward alone, and particularly if the EMS district becomes the recommendation, and I think I'm persuaded that that's probably the model that I'll come back and recommend to you. Ultimately, to make that happen will require an interlocal agreement between the 9 entities, the same partners who currently run the dispatch center, and then a county ordinance. Once that's done, and then that group will essentially own that levy authority, that levy money, and will be able to make governance decisions moving forward. There are still some significant issues, within that structure that will have to be worked out. But the good news is there are really no complaints about service or levels of service. So at the provider level, at the patient care level, our system is really strong. The reason we're here, I think, is there are a lot of concerns about the long-term economic or financial viability of the system and about how we can be more representative. Because currently, to do something, if we want, say Sedro-Woolley Fire wants to engage, we have to get the county commissioners to agree to share levy money, or we do it without levy money. And those are challenging scenarios. So this would give the city a seat at the table. The county department has some benefits in that it's very streamlined, but it doesn't really change the governance, and there certainly have been concerns over the past years about having the county commissioners kind of directly engaged in that when the county doesn't do fire. So it's a bit of a challenge for the commissioners in that they collect EMS levy money, but they as a governmental entity really don't do any of that kind of work. They don't have fire departments, and I don't think they really ever will. So there's the overview. Process-wise, I think we're meeting again maybe in about 2 weeks, and then I think there's a meeting probably about a month after that. So sometime October, November. This would be the time for both Councilmember Dunley and I, if you've got some perspective about how you want us to help shape how that's moving forward. This would be a good time to give us some input on, what are you concerned about, what are you hoping to see. And otherwise, we'll bring back to you what the group ultimately recommends, and we'll just keep working on what seems to be the best system. The charge the mayor gave us was, kind of take off your Sedro-Woolley coat, and we don't want anybody to get hurt. We don't want anybody's jobs to be lost as a result of this. Go work on the best system for the county as a whole, and that's what we've done. Is we've walked in with that approach. So, any questions I can answer? It's tough to summarize in 5 or 10 minutes an entire system, and we've got reports. Dean has an entire shelf of the reports, consultant reports over the years that have addressed what this system is and should be. But I'd be glad to answer. Our fire chief, of course, can jump in and answer too.
Any questions, Council?
Well, you were saying something about the EMS board would have so many people represented on its board. So how many? You and Commissioner Janicki, and how many do you think we would have as a representation on that board?
Yeah, so that would be determined ultimately by the 9 entities. So Skagit County, the 4 cities and 4 towns, all of their councils will have to agree on a document that establishes the governance structure. The subcommittee has looked at a proposal that would include 1 representative from each of the 4 cities, 1 county commissioner, 2 fire district commissioners, and 1 town. And then, so 4 urban, 4 rural. The fire commissioners, 1 would be east I-5, 1 would be west of I-5, maintain some geographic diversity. Those 8 then would select a 9th chairperson who, if everything is going well and things are smooth, this is a system designed to build consensus, not conflict, would very likely not need to exercise a vote, but the chair would have the tie-breaking vote. So a similar model to what we did with the jail finance committee, where the county has 4 seats and the cities have 4 seats. We selected Mark Vinn as the chairperson and told him on day 1 if he ever has to vote, we might have to get rid of him, because that means we're not moving collectively in any direction. And of course, that's not been an issue. We've worked, I think, very well in that process together, and Mark does a great job chairing that. So that's a concept, but really the state law that allows the creation of an EMS district allows those 9 entities who are required to make it happen for a countywide levy to have whatever governance structure they could dream of.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, moving on to new business, item 6, proposed ordinance amending the stormwater management ordinance, Sedro-Woolley Municipal Code, Chapter 13.36 and 1340. Is that you, Mark?
That's me. Thank you, Mayor.
Can I have you move your mic a little bit closer, please?
Yes, sir. So this particular proposed ordinance is a first reading of an update to mainly chapters 1336 and 1340 of the Municipal Code, but also a few other sections relating to planning. The background for this is the city operates its stormwater system under the auspices of the Washington State Department of Ecology under a National Pollution Discharge Elimination System permit. That's Phase 2 stormwater permit, it's called. That permit has certain milestones in it that we've been meeting over the years in terms of how we manage stormwater in our own particular system, and because that stormwater eventually ends up in the waters of the state. So the Department of Ecology has the regulatory authority for how those waters are handled. The city in 2010 adopted, as an earlier part of that process, sections or modifications to sections 1336 for stormwater management, and also a new ordinance, section 1340 for stormwater maintenance. And we've been operating under those particular documents for the last 6 years. In those documents, we referenced the 2005 Stormwater Management Manual for Western Washington, which is the governing manual that dictates how that stormwater is to be handled. We adopted that manual as part of our own program. A milestone that we have as of December 31st of 2016 is to update our ordinances and standards to not just suggest a certain change or regulatory or operating standards, including low-impact development, but now to require them. That's a change that's been basically mandated by the state of Washington, that any development, and this mostly affects development projects and maintenance projects such as the city does on a regular basis, will have to address their management of stormwater with first consideration low-impact developments. Those are such things as using bioswales and other devices like that, green-type things to manage stormwater as your first choice, rather than, as our current ordinance says, that is an option that the developer or the city can use. We have to look at that now as the first choice. So the purpose of this ordinance is, and the result of the work by Pat Haden, contracting for the city, was to review the city's municipal code and standards, identify any places that it needed to be updated to meet that regulatory requirement for December 31st. So this is the first reading of that tonight. The changes are outlined in the document that's attached to my memorandum in Strikeout and Underlined additions, so you can see the changes there. It does, it will, when adopted, include references to the current version of the Stormwater Management Manual, updates for that. It's now under its 2014 edition, and also updates the language of the code to require use of low-impact development as opposed to suggesting it as the old ordinances require. So that's the gist of what we've got, and if you have any questions about it, I'd be glad to try to answer them for you.
Mark, how often do they update that manual? Is it as needed, or is it on a scheduled basis?
They first put the manual out in 2005, and it was updated in 2012 was the last major update, and then they subsequently did an amendment to the 2012 manual in 2014, which is strictly an amendment to the 2012 manual. So it's been happening roughly every 5-6 years, that kind of thing. We had looked at adopting the manual just referencing the current edition, and that may be where you're heading with that. That was the way we had first looked at it, but in our discussions, Pat recommended that we specifically adopt the current edition. So we'll have to do this again when that happens. Hopefully it's 4 or 5 years down the road, and it should be fairly simple at that time just to update the manual reference to whatever the current edition is.
Thank you. Anybody else have questions? Okay, thanks, Mark. So we'll move on to committee reports. Chief Tucker.
Apologize I didn't get this in sooner, but I have a request for out-of-state travel. I didn't put it in a memo format because I remembered this about 15 minutes before council meeting and I'd forgotten to do this. But Detective Eaton has been invited to go with the crisis intervention team, which he's part of the county team, to attend a Pacific Northwest Crisis Negotiator seminar and competition. It's in lieu of some of his other crisis training, and it'll be in Portland, Oregon. Cost is minimal. I believe he's going to share a room with somebody when he's down there, and we can take care of this. But it's pretty important training for him to get. So just wanted to advise you, and I guess maybe request approval for doing that. Do I just ask for approval, or I think you just for approval?
I think you just did. So would anyone care to make a motion to approve Detective Eaton's travel to the Pacific Northwest Crisis Negotiation Training?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve Officer Eaton's out-of-state travel.
Okay, motion was made by Councilman Sandstrom, seconded by Councilman Lemley, to approve Detective Eaton's travel to the Pacific Northwest Crisis Negotiator Training. Any further discussion?
Do we know what that cost is, Lynn?
What's that?
We know what that cost is at this point, or
it's $60 to attend, and then not sure on the final for rooms. It's not a lot.
A few $100 maybe.
Yeah. And he's riding with somebody or taking somebody with, so sharing with officers from Mount Vernon and the Sheriff's Office.
Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And you have it.
All right, thank you.
Tell me to drive safe.
Yeah. A little bit of excitement in Sedro-Woolley today. Some may have seen our Facebook post, and some may have heard about it. We had a reported child abduction this morning at 9:30, or an attempted child abduction. A 5-year-old was at a bus stop, comes home screaming, saying that some guy tried to grab her, that he had a little boy with him, was trying to lure her away, and she punched him and ran away. We mobilized every effort. We had 4 state troopers. We had the fire truck, ladder truck up there to take aerial pictures of the location. We had an emergency interviewer, child specialist interviewer. She's recently left her position with the Child Advocacy Center, but we called her personally and asked her to come up and interview this child for us, and brought her up. We had Upper Skagit, Burlington. We were online with the Mount Vernon detectives to see if we needed to get a broader-based call-out. We're putting out an attempt to locate. We scoured the area, and that was about the time that the story started unraveling. And our interviewer really got down to the nuts and bolts. Apparently the little girl decided that she did not want to go to school. She doesn't like her teacher, and she made a rather convincing story. We were a little skeptical at the beginning, but we had nothing more to go on other than we really need to mobilize everything just in case this had happened. A ton of kids up in that 700 and 600 North Reed area. And there's enough weird stuff that goes on up there that we decided we wanted to, Tony lives up that way, so we kind of had to mobilize everything we could. But we put everything, everything we could and checking in the area, and then when that story came apart, we got the word out as soon as we could. Once again, social media really helped us out. It was a little bit strange that once this hit social media, initially we did not get any media calls at all. Usually King 5's all over this. Somebody missed the boat today because nobody got a hold of us. I had to call the Herald just to say, hey, we might have a child abduction, but it turned out false, so if you get a lot of reports. Now, every parent that had a little kid going to school today freaked out just a little bit and called the school and asked what they should do. The school was one of our first contacts, so we worked with them. So if you hear anything about it, the story was completely debunked by the end of the day. The little girl was just upset. Her story got a little bit more outrageous. She ended up stabbing the guy to death and ran away. So I think she watched too many Criminal Minds episodes, honestly. We have Rhonda back from extended medical leave. She's back on duty. I'd like to say we have her back, but she got called into court her first 2 days back. So she's been in court for 2 days down in Seattle for a federal court issue. But she's back and been given the green light for full duty. That adds another body to our ranks and gets her back in the rotation. I spent all day yesterday at lethality assessment protocol training. It's a train the trainer training. It's going to be a program that we're going to be part of countywide. And on serious intimate partner domestic violence issues, we're going to have a 12-question questionnaire that we discuss with the victim, and kind of depending on our gut reaction and their responses, it can trigger an immediate call to domestic violence services to get them on board. Tiffany was here a couple of council meetings ago to explain some of that. And it seems like a fairly simple program. It's not really going to have a huge impact on what we do. There'll be a little bit of paper shuffling that goes along, but hopefully if it does nothing more than help save one person by getting them into services, it's worth whatever we put into it. So we're going to be part of that. In the next 4 months, we have to train everybody up on it and get the DV services trained up on it. They have to staff a hotline to qualify for the funding for this, and everything's on task for that. So we had people from the Sheriff's Office, Mount Vernon, Burlington Police Department, Sedro-Woolley, Anacortes, everybody was there, and so we're going forward with that. I think Burlington City Councilwoman was there as well. And so we're getting some good feedback from the people involved in that. I think it's a good program. So we're going to be moving forward with that here in the next couple of months. You may have seen some of us are wearing the new patch on our uniforms. I've got the subdued one on my jumpsuit, but we had the full color one that's coming out, and it's just all part of that kind of rebranding and getting our name and faces out in the public. And we have a lot of support in the public, and I'd like to keep it that way. And we're getting a lot of positive comments on the new patch. I showed the mayor the pumpkin patch sticker we're going to be doing for Halloween. I found a company that makes really inexpensive stickers for kids, and we have a small budget for that kind of thing. But our plan is on Halloween, when we have the Halloween parade, have a bunch of these stickers, and I had 1,000 or 2,000 of these stickers made for our regular police patches to hand out to kids, and we're going to do a few hundred of these patches or stickers with a pumpkin in the center instead of the eagle that's in the center of our patch. It's pretty cool looking, but it's another thing to kind of get kids a little more engaged with our officers. And we're also going to be handing out some little glow sticks for the trick-or-treaters. So we're kind of gearing up for that, and I got some officers that are really energized about getting involved with that. So they're getting kind of excited, and I've recruited some help in getting our connections with the community a little better. Officer Dan Eddy just completed his WSP training, and he's been doing the checks at the weights and at the weight scales down at down Stanwood or Conway. And so all he has to do is get Bill Chambers to get the software loaded onto his computer and do a couple of last-minute things, and he can start doing some commercial vehicle enforcement. And I know you all have been looking forward to that, and maybe finding some answers to all the questions everybody has about why those trucks keep rumbling down Highway 9. So he'll be geared up to do that. He's been covering shifts right now, but we're estimating that he did 60 to 70 hours of inspections after going to a 2-week class on this. So this has been a pretty significant investment on our part and his. We're talking, I think it was 80 hours of classroom and work at the State Patrol, and then another 60 or 70 in the field doing work on this. So a lot of work went into this. We're hoping we're getting a lot of bang back from our buck. This previous weekend was our 9/11. There were several events on there. I had absolutely no time to get down to the Founders Day. We tried to get some officers down there. But Dean and I had breakfast at the Legion first thing. And if you get a chance when the Legion has their breakfasts, they feed you lots of bacon. It's awesome. And biscuits and gravy and such. Yeah, the mayor sat down, and I think the meal he had was the size of a small child. But we started out with breakfast. 2 different churches had requested somebody be there. I went to the Bethlehem Lutheran Church. I got to see Cheryl there the other morning. Put on a touching emergency responders thank you. It was hard to talk when they got done with their presentation and thank yous and all that. It was impressive. And then they gave us 2 platters of cinnamon rolls right after breakfast at the Legion. And then we went to the Inspire Church. They did another emergency responder recognition for and they had officers and emergency dispatchers and firefighters from several different jurisdictions. It was very impressive, and it really hit home. It was very impressive and really appreciated by myself, and I passed everybody's thanks on to my troops. That's all I got, Mayor.
That was plenty.
That was enough.
With respect to our false alarm today, I was very impressed with how the department handled that, and I think it was, in a way, a good thing because we got to exercise what's really a worst nightmare for a community, and we learned some lessons, probably who to contact and how to get there, plus we didn't have a real tragedy, so I'm going to say the glass is half full with that.
Absolutely, yeah. It did
and
cost us.
that's a jack-o'-lantern on the sticker, not a pumpkin.
Not a pumpkin. It's a pumpkin, not a pumpkin. It's a pumpkin.
Dean. Oh, I'm sorry. Did anybody else on the council have anything for the chief? Okay, now Dean.
Just a couple small items, Mayor. We've got the fire department's 26th annual Give Burns a Boot fundraiser coming up on October 1st this year. Normally it's the last Saturday in October. This year it's the first Saturday in October. And it'll be held there at the community center as always, and the proceeds, profits from that go to the Phoenix Foundation. You probably see their commercials on TV all the time. And then coming up the second full week in October is the fire prevention for the schools, so we'll be visiting all the local area schools. We also end up doing District 8 too, so we'll be going out to Sandstrom and Lyman helping Chief Fay with those. So if you've got any grandkids or anything, you're welcome to come out and join us if you'd like to go listen to the little lectures. So that's all we have, Mayor.
Thank you. Appreciated the ladder truck down at the park with the American flag. Got lots of compliments. And as soon as it left, everybody was wondering where it went, so they really did notice it. Anything else for Chief Klinger? Mark?
The only thing I have is, as you're probably well aware, the Jameson Roundabout project opened up on September 5th, pretty much on schedule. The contractor has done most of the final cleanup on the project. We have a fairly large punch list for them still to complete, which will be done over the next couple of weeks. And then back on September 22nd, the 26th, this is Monday, weather permitting, we'll come out and do all of the final striping for the project, and also there'll be some, in the same time period, they'll be putting in the hydro seeding on the slopes and finishing it up, and should be fully done by the end of September. That's the intention anyway. I haven't been down there to watch the traffic at the peak hours, but I understand that the school district is pretty pleased with what's happened. I'll be verifying that with them over the course of the week, and I'm going to spend an afternoon just watching for myself. Been down there several times, and it seems to be running just fine. Don't notice any real problem with speeding at this point. And I think it's fulfilling its function, and certainly the backups that we were seeing on West Nelson all the way around to Beatty Curb, that's not happening now. Buses are flowing freely, and people are moving, and very little delay there. So.
Yeah, I talked to the superintendent about it. They seem very pleased. I had probably 50 compliments on it, and one, it was the worst idea ever, terrible, hate everything about it. But I think that's a pretty good ratio.
Yeah, and we'll be doing a follow-up traffic study as part of our normal January traffic counts to see what the actual volumes are. Just visually right now, it doesn't appear to me that there's any real major change on people that are using Jameses as opposed to before the project where they were using West State or whatever. I imagine patterns may change some as people get used to it, but right now it appears to be a minor impact on the neighborhoods. That was one of the main considerations brought up in our public meetings that we held on that.
Thank you. Aaron?
Nothing further.
Patsy?
In addition to Ellen's discussion, there is a quarterly report on the senior center usage in your council packet on page 73. We do include those reports 4 times a year. In your packets, they come with the quarterly invoices from the county. They've changed the looks of them a little bit, but it's still the same basic information. We've started budget preparations. Department heads have input their budget requests and their 2016 projections. Those are important because it determines ending cash, which determines beginning cash for next year, so gets you a good idea what's available to be spent. So we'll be working on that. Next week, I'm in Spokane at the Washington Finance Officers Annual Conference. And then the following week, on the 27th, the auditors are still scheduled to come on that day. We'll see as we get closer. And I'll give you more information at the next council meeting.
Thank you. Jermaine?
Well, all I was going to do is read something I just found in my email a couple days ago. There was a Northern State Veterans Picnic coming up on the 26th of this month, and that's before our next meeting. And I'll just read the email. It's pretty short. It's at 11 a.m., September 26th, at the Northern State Recreation Area, Helmick Road, Sedro-Woolley. You're invited to join the Skagit County Parks and Recreation Department at a dedication ceremony for the newly built picnic pavilion at Veterans Park, located at the Northern State Recreation Area, Helmick Road, Sedro-Woolley. The pavilion commemorates and honors the distinguished military veterans of Skagit County. It is the first phase of a much larger veterans project designed thoughtfully to recognize and honor every local veteran who selflessly served our country. Thanks.
Yeah, they did a great job, and it emulates the barns up the hill, which was a detail I would have never thought of, but it really looks nice. So if you can go support that, I would encourage you. Brenda?
I had a little mishap at Bingham Park last weekend. We had a car breakdown, and I now have a new renewed appreciation for park caretakers. Phil's a really nice guy. Just the fact that, he came out and see what was going on and helped in any way he could, which wasn't, nobody could really do much. But I just wanted to say I appreciate him. He's a nice guy, and it's nice to have people there at the parks watching out for the parks. So, and Next thing, the first meeting for the Northern State Hospital Cemetery Restoration Project will be October 2nd at 4:30 p.m. up at the Northern State Cemetery. I invite everybody to come out to that. We're working on a project to restore all the cemetery markers out there at the cemetery that are buried in the grass or sunk into the ground there. It's just beginning. I'd love it if everybody go up there and see what's going on. It's coming along slowly, but want to get more volunteers out there to help. So first meeting October 2nd at 4:30.
Thank you. Julia?
Yeah, I'd like to encourage everybody to attend the author, Joe Vitovic, who is coming to the library on Tuesday. He is going to be talking about his book. It's called Full Circle, A Refugee's Tale. It's at 6:30 Tuesday at the library. And a little bit about him, which I think is kind of pertinent to what's happening in the world, especially with us talking about refugees. Mr. Vitovic is somebody who migrated to the United States in 1950, and that was after he had actually spent some time in refugee camps in, I believe it was Germany, France, and Italy. So he's somebody who has some real history and some interesting information. So I encourage everybody to come out for that. And Rick, I know that your club retired, sponsoring the Founders Day car show, and I got to tell you, I've always enjoyed it this year. Thank you, Mayor, for arranging the flyby. That was really lovely. It was very lovely. And Rick, I just want to thank you and the club for sponsoring it for as long as you have. And then just
sponsor it, we just host it.
Well, host it, which is a lot of work in and of itself. Mm-hmm. And also to the museum, I believe it was the Sedro-Woolley Museum who actually sponsored or set up the meals. Isn't that right? You did the food, which was great. Yeah, so thank you to you for that as well. And I just want to say, I see here that the Department of Ecology sent a congratulations letter to our Sedro-Woolley Waste Treatment Plant. We got did receive the 2015 Outstanding Performance Awards. So Debbie and her crew are amazing, and I just want to do a shout out to them.
Yeah. Great. Thank you. Chuck?
Yeah. Again, I want to thank Ellen for showing up tonight and putting on her little program. I've known Ellen for quite a few years now. I hang out quite a bit around the senior center. She puts out some good meals, and sometimes you get a bad one, but
that's a lot to mention that one.
Something she
can't be choosy.
She has no control over. She's completely dependent on volunteers. So if anybody here has some extra time, she would love to have you come down and help out. She's a very patient person. I've never seen her get mad. She has a lot of reasons to get mad at me sometimes, but you can't seem to get her cranked up. So, but again, Ellen, we appreciate you. I appreciate you, and you do a fantastic job at the Senior Center. And this month is Diaper Awareness Month, right?
Week.
Week.
Yeah, I think it would be appropriate if the mayor wore a diaper to work one day.
Well, is Chuck going to wear one too? And how do you know I'm not?
That's all right.
Rick?
Thanks to everybody. Founders Day car show last Sunday was a good success. It wasn't the best event we've had. It wasn't the worst. Thanks to Mayor Wagner for assisting in coordinating the Navy flyover to acknowledge our fire department personnel and police department. And thanks to Dean for bringing the truck. Yeah, we did have a lot of comments. Put it over the gate so everybody that came into the park drove over it, so they had to see it. Thought that was really nice. My car club that I'm involved with, JJ's Cruisers, one of my old classmates, Janelle Vince Silvis and her husband started this club in 1986. And over the years it's went strong, and it's kind of waning now. It seems like kids anymore want to go to rice burners and everything else rather than good old classics. So We can't run a car show of that size with 3 or 4 members, so we are disbanding the club to give us some free time to attend shows on our own. And we raised a fair amount of money, which we will be contributing to the Helping Hands Food Bank sometime in late October or something to assist with their holiday programs, things with that. So, Chief Tucker probably knows, and probably Keith and Mark, that last week, in a matter of about 25 hours, we had 2 incidents at the roundabout at Township Street and Dunlap Street. People that pretty much demolished their cars. One was an elderly gentleman that I happen to know. I'm not quite sure how he did that, but one was a young man, I think, in a vehicle. So we'll need to discuss some options as to what we might be doing with that roundabout at some point. So I'll come to talk to you, Mark, and Aaron.
Yeah, the neighbor who had specifically requested that thought that that might be evidence that it was working correctly in terms of the speed issues on that location.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Well, when I was standing there on Saturday morning looking at it, and looking at some pictures and things, and some young kid in his Honda burner with his loud muffler came up the street, and I'm going like this, and he goes out his sunroof and says, "Get off the road!" And off he went at about 40 miles an hour. Yeah. For some it works, for some it doesn't. So talk with him and find out. Anyway, thanks for everybody. A great shout out to all of the sponsors for the trophies for the car show that we've been doing over the years. 35 sponsors here in the Sedro-Woolley area over the years have donated a lot of money for a lot of trophies that bring a lot of people into Sedro-Woolley. Those trophies is what people come for. This year we had 120 trophies that we distributed. That's a fair amount for a lot of cars and that. And without the local sponsorship for that, to get those people here to spend their money, it wouldn't happen. So kudos to all those businesses that gave of their money to do that, and to Renee of Renee's World taking a couple weeks to assemble. Anyway, yeah, thank you everyone for coming to that. You did.
Brett?
Yeah.
Brett? So Rick has gone out of his way to thank me for the Hilo thing, but what he fails to mention is all I did was the paperwork and make a phone call. It was Rick's idea, and I wouldn't have thought of it on my own. I thought you were outstanding during the presentation of the trophies, because you had something special to say for just about every person when you handed out all 126 of those, which shows how well you knew those people. And I'm sure you grew into it.
10 years doing that.
It was great.
Yeah, you got to emphasize.
So we have the unpleasant task of going into executive here under RCW 4230.140, subparagraph 4, review of the performance of a public employee. We will be in there about 15 minutes. I do not expect a decision, so.
Do you need to keep Dean here?
We'll talk to him later.
Okay.
And thank you all for coming if you're not staying. So.
Okay.
And one time it expired on me, and I missed this when I missed it. You need action.
So we're back from executive at 8:37. There's no action required.
So
Anyone have a motion to, how about this? Without objection, we will be adjourned. And that's it. We're adjourned.
You find some stray chickens, ducks.